You're listening to a Meatsmith Harvest. This is the podcast that encourages and equips you to grow your home around the harvest. Welcome, Meatsmiths. This dialogue picks up where we left off in our last episode's conversation. You can find part 1 on our website, YouTube, or iTunes. If the content resonates with you, please consider supporting our team by going to patreon.com/Meatsmith and donating a small monthly pledge. This goes directly toward more free media headed your way. Thanks for staying tuned for part 2.
All right, smoker is stoked.
Yeah, so right before we started recording, you started 3 fires on our property.
Yes.
One in the house to keep the kids warm.
Yeah.
One in the shop to keep us sort of warm.
Uh-huh.
And I've just got my wool blanket here, though. And then the third was your smoker.
Mm-hmm.
So that took like an hour to get it all sorted.
Yeah, we are people of the woods.
Yeah,
big time.
Yeah, especially in December.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, through March, we're just constantly lighting fires.
Yeah, because it's also smoking season.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's true. That takes up so much of your time.
Yeah. So when we make firewood, we are making 30-inch logs to heat our house. We're making 16-inch logs to heat your parents' house.
Oh, that's right.
I'm making 12-inch logs to fire the smoker, which I can also use for the shop.
The 12 inchers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't we use 12-inch logs all around, you ask? Well,
because we do things the hard way all the time.
it is altogether fitting and proper that the logs fit the full dimension of our humongous Papa Bear wood stove.
It is, yeah.
But it might just be fitting and proper. I don't know if it's actually necessary.
Okay, so we were halfway through your sausage process.
Yeah, and I would like to say the most essential element, the obvious element of the efficient cause is you. Mm. So you are the efficient cause of the sausage.
Uh-huh.
And it's worth noting, especially because, like we said, the recipe books give you the impression that maybe you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if you don't partially freeze the meat, you are in great danger of killing yourself and your children. Lots of draconian, scary warnings. But, you know, really the only subtlety here in the making of sausage, where it is theoretically possible for people to get very sick, is with the fermentation, the natural nitrite-free fermentation of sausage, or which can involve the smoking of sausage, because you're putting ground meat in a casing that is anaerobic, that is to say without oxygen, and then you're putting it in a warm and toasty place where bacteria can proliferate. Now, it is theoretically possible that something could go wrong there. The Clostridium botulinum in that anaerobic environment produces the spore that produces the toxin. But really, I think I might have already put this out there on the podcast, but I'd like to, if I haven't already, a call for all of you food scientists that don't really listen to us, but maybe do, to find a case of poisoning by salami, defined as that which is ground pork, salted to around 2%, stuffed into a casing, hung up and aged and dried, and then eaten raw. Mm-hmm. So that's what I want to know. How many times does that actually cause botulism? Because judging from the records of the CDC for the last 50 years or 100 years of botulate cases, not a single one of those. So that would be interesting to know. Mm-hmm. But that's fermentation. So that's when you're getting into the realm of trying to nurture the sausage into preservation by nurturing bacteria in it, selecting the right bacteria. So that's where it's tricky. That's where it takes some art. That's where it takes some conducive climactic conditions. But when it comes to fresh sausage, man, that is easy peasy. Uh-huh. And you are the best efficient cause of that, to be sure.
Yeah.
You should be doing that. because you can. It is not the exclusive realm in chefs with lab coats. You can be a good authority. If you made your sausage from good pork and salted it 2% by weight, I don't care what anybody says. It is delicious. Mm-hmm. I might care what you say because you made it.
Yeah.
But if you don't like it, you might be wrong. You might want to eat it a little bit longer and give it a try. Someone commented, one of our members, I think, that there is actually clinical work that's been done on how long it takes to acquire a taste or to change your taste. I think it was 14 days, but I can't remember. It was something like 2 to 3 weeks.
No, it wasn't in time. It was like in quantity of taste.
Oh, was it?
It was like...
how many times you taste it?
I can't remember. Yeah. Of course I can't remember. Mm-hmm. But it was remarkable.
How very interesting. Yeah.
Well, I know that psychologically the brain, it takes 7 exposures to something for you to finally take notice of it.
Oh, yeah.
So that might be kind of similar.
Yeah. Interesting. So.
Oh, yeah. I'll have to dig that up. It was like you gotta eat something or drink something handfuls of times before you acquire the taste. So someone's asking here, is frozen meat, can you still use frozen meat versus fresh meat?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you can, definitely. Mm-hmm. Wow. Blah, blah, blah.
It's getting cold and you're drinking pork.
Yeah. So you might notice that frozen meat that you have made sausage from, that sausage, it might tend to be a little dry after you cook it. It's easier to overcook it. It's easier for it to become a little rubbery. And I think the reason for that is that under the conditions of freezing, the water molecules expand and they kind of shred the meat a little bit. And I think that it does a little something to the water holding capacity of the meat.
Or the fat holding capacity,
yeah,
right?
I don't know. Maybe something.
Things happen in the freezer. It's not just static.
It doesn't just hold it statically. Yeah. So, I mean, do it, of course.
Yeah.
Do it. Use the frozen meat.
Yeah.
But if you're like me and you have insanely stupidly high expectations for linked sausage. So here's the thing. When I put it in links, suddenly I become a total elitist. And I want the links to be perfect. I fry them gently, moderate low heat. Flip them once, not twice.
Yeah.
Only once.
Yeah.
Perfectly browned on both sides, cooked just through. No bursting.
Well, and I'm someone that has to know why. So why only flip once? And I know the answer, but...
But, I mean, I only mention that to say that if I were to make, when I make links, because I have such an insanely high standard for the links, I would be a little disappointed with previously frozen meat.
Okay, yeah.
Just because it tends to lose a little more moisture, it exudes a little more. But good grief, chill out, self. You could make it from...
Do it. That's what we're saying. Yeah.
It'll be wonderful. Again, if you have the fat and the salt right and the quality of the meat, it'll be awesome.
No.
I might not even notice if you fed it to me, honestly. It's just in the cooking of it that I flatter myself that I notice these things.
Maybe side by side with a blind taste test, know. It's like comparing...
So hyper detailed subtleties that don't matter.
Yeah. Okay, so in the process, you have deboned the meat.
Well, you said why flip once, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And this is kind of the part of really the final cause, which is the cooking of the sausage.
Well, okay. I asked prematurely. Let's back up. Let's get, because that's on my list. I want to talk about cooking in its proper order.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you've taken off the skin off of your shoulders and your sirloins, and you're deboning. Anything that we need to just hack at it, just get it off.
Yeah, get the.
Nothing really.
There's no trick other than a sharp knife and experience. You get better at boning out pork. And if it's a home pig, don't sweat trying to totally denude the bones of all meat.
Yeah,
because you will find little scraps of meat and collagen very desirable in the stock that you're going to make from all those bones. So don't be too puritanical about that.
Okay, so you've got a pile of essentially stew meat.
Yeah, and we mentioned grinding, we mentioned mixing thoroughly. And then
the right
stuffing,
quantity
you
there.
want to let the casings soak in water, because they will come in the mail to you, likely, unless you clean your own. And they will be packed in salt, and they'll be really dry and brittle, and they won't be very workable. So you soak them, and if you really want them to be pliable and workable, which I recommend, run the tap through them. Run water through them.
Okay.
And it's a really quick way to rinse out salt and to make it very... Your mom's out there.
Oh.
to make it very useful.
Okay.
So use the water to make the casings pliable, and if you can get them soaking at least a couple hours before, it will dramatically expedite your stuffing of the sausage, which you will use this machine for that I am pointing to right there. Big old canister with a tube that comes off that end on which you slide the casings, and then a piston that goes down when you turn a handle, stuffing the casings full of deliciously seasoned sausage meat. And once they're stuffed, you'll have these long coils, and then you spin them into links, and you can definitely look up Scott Ray, his video, or Scott Ree, I think it's Ree. He's got a YouTube, RHEA, a YouTube channel that's very popular and super awesome, and he details the linking process if you want to do the cool butcher banger way of doing it, which is a British butcher banger way, which is making 3 links at once. It's really efficient. They tend to be a little looser. If you're like me and you have an inordinate obsession with perfectly sized and equally dense links, then you will link each one individually, nurturing each shape, each link on its own. And when you do that, you'll just be alternating directions. You pinch the coil, spin away from you, and then go to the next one, spin towards you. And you will be judging each link on its own. So there's not a fixed number of spins. It's just you spin it until it is at the absolute limit of the tensile strength of the casing, almost bursting. And I don't prick them. One thing I might do is when it comes off of the extruder, off of the sausage stuffer, you've got the big unlinked coil, coil it, and then I rub my hand around it kind of vigorously, and I centralize the bubbles, so there will be air, and it's not very desirable. So you kind of follow the spiral with your hand, rubbing all the way to the end, and then just prick the end. That way you just get one hole, and you've worked the air all the way to one side, and now the air's gone through one to three large bubbles in the coil.
Excuse me.
And then you link that. And then you want to refrigerate that or leave it out if you've salted it at 2% by weight. If you leave it out all night, it will develop a minor souring, just a real subtle sour, a little tang, and it's nice. And it's a little bit of fermentation that has begun. And I think it's great. It's a really nice addition of flavor. It seems to integrate the spices and create a more a harmony, a more diffuse harmony, rather than these individual, like, oh, there's the cumin, oh, there's the paprika, oh, there's the oregano. You know, it tends to blend them. And then don't separate the links until the next day, because those little connections need to dry out. And then once they're dry-ish, you can snip them or cut them with a knife into individual links, and they won't unravel.
Yeah.
And then for a fresh sausage, we'll keep a big platter of it in the walk-in or in the fridge in the house until we eat through them, and they'll be in there for a week or so at least. And if we have more than that, then we just freeze them right after snipping the links, wrap them and freeze them.
Yeah. You've made sausage before for one time for our son's birthday that we invited a ton of people over for. And you didn't link it. It was just one long coil.
Huge coil, yeah.
And we cooked it on our paella pan.
Yeah, it filled like the whole thing.
It was huge.
Yeah, that was fun.
It was really fun. And you even flipped them all in one flip.
Well,
I don't know how you did it.
It broke a little bit, but...
Well, something.
It was a magnanimous gesture.
It really was. I think you captured it on Instagram maybe. It was like a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. You also have done I don't know what it's called actually, but where you can make 3
Yes,
links.
I described that
okay.
for them, and I recommended to them Scott Reeves' video on that.
Okay.
Actually, did we do a video on that?
We did, yeah.
I did for the membership, I think.
Yeah, we have like 3 to 6 videos in membership right now.
On sausage.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see what I mean by sausage extruder, what our grinder looks like exactly. The 3 links per something mode, linking 3 links at a time.
Yeah. Okay, in our process you've ground it.
Yeah.
You've mixed.
We just did stuffing. We just did linking.
Stuffing. Okay.
And wrapping.
Okay, so let's talk about cooking.
That's process. Yeah. Well, I would say that there is something to be. We've sort of been blurring the lines in our Thomistic analysis here, but
yes,
the formal cause, which is kind of like the recipe, and maybe that's part of what's so cool about this is that the material cause is the formal cause. Ooh. And that's actually sublime because when form and content come together, then you get something very special. And I think that if you get the material cause right, if you get the quality pork, sufficient fat, sufficient salt, you're done. That is the recipe.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to get a little more creative and, make sausages the flavor of which you would recognize, I could give you some guidelines as to recipes, actual spicing profiles. So this is more formal cause stuff.
Okay.
And for these, again, I don't have individual recipes. I've recorded tons of them because I'm trying to stumble upon something that works. And I sort of have, I guess. But really, I think that the funnest and the most rewarding thing is to season your sausages seasonally and use your garden. So for us, I can give you an example because gardens are so regional, but my favorite things to plant in our garden for sausage are sage, parsley. Parsley is number 1 favorite for sausage, and sorrel, which grows like a weed up here at least, and just plant herbs, please. You can do coriander and harvest this. So you can plant cilantro, let it go to seed, and just harvest the seeds. Let them dry out. Those are really delicious. Plant herbs. There's really, plant marjoram, plant thyme. Lots of, we're talking rows. Get serious.
With herbs.
Lots. Yeah, you need mass quantities. This is not like I'm going to season my eggs in the morning. This is, we want buckets of herbs.
Yeah.
Especially parsley. Because you can almost not use too much parsley with pork. It's so mild and unassuming. It just lifts up whatever you put it in. So that's my favorite way. That's number 1. Fresh herbs for seasoning the fresh sausages is so good. Garlic, onions are also great. And all of those wonderful things. So. That's kind of your fall sausage, right? When everything is just popping, summer sausages that you might make. But then there is going to come a time when all those leafy greens they're gone. They're nowhere. At least if you don't have a greenhouse and you live up where I do, and you're not a very good winter gardener. In which case you will have to rely on dried spices, and that's all right. The dried spices are easy to come by. That is the advantage of those. So you could just get on Amazon and order from Frontier, these bulk spices, and they will come to you and they'll be wonderful. Now, there is a danger with the dried spices. Unlike fresh herbs, which you can just be magnanimous with, seasoned by the handful. I never weigh it. I don't weigh it with the fresh herbs. It's just mountains of parsley. Go for it. You might have to watch out for sage. You can chop a little too much sage. And I like to chop all these green herbs, by the way. So, but the point I'm trying to make is you can really be very, you don't have to be as precise with the fresh herbs. They're so good. There's so much diversity in flavor in a single fresh herb that it's not going to overwhelm and take over and be unpleasant. Dried spices, on the other hand, it is very likely that will happen. And it is one thing to make a sausage that tastes real good. You know, when you make your batch and you mix it and you salt it, and before you stuff it, it's a good idea to taste a patty. It's one thing to make a sausage that tastes real good when you do that sample, right? You're going to taste it and be like, oh yeah, that paprika is awesome. So good. And then you stuff it in a lynx and it happens to be 50 pounds of sausage and it takes you 3 months to eat all of it. By week 3, you are done with paprika. You are over it. And that is very common. So I think that when it comes to spicing with dried spices, it is worthwhile to develop a strategy for sausages that taste good for the long haul, for long term. That means you must achieve a harmony. We get real bored with narcissistic spices, with egotists. So when it's just paprika or there's too much cumin, it's not good.
Yeah.
Again, it tastes good when you fry up that sample because it kind of like zaps you. You're like, woo, hey, that's cool. But then like it does not withstand prolonged dinners over the next 3 months. So that's when you crave something a little more subtle, which is also more complex, which is what a harmony is. Because we are wired, and I think we prefer the total more than the parts. And that's what you can achieve with a harmony. So here's a ratio that I can give you that works real well, that I developed by excavating this guy's stuff. Maynard Davies, The Manual of a Traditional Baking Cure. He talks all about the importance of the harmony of spices. That is the key. So that when you taste the sausage, you're not actually tasting any one spice. You are tasting the sum of the parts, which is more than the parts. And that is the definition of a harmony. And here's the ratio. And again, this is best done with dried spices. Fresh herbs from your garden are difficult to weigh, they're difficult to measure, and it's just less consequential. Just use them by handfuls. They're complex and delicious enough on their own right. You don't need to be this precise. As long as everything is salted 2% by weight and you've got 30% fat, have fun with the spices. They're not going to be as decisive as you might think, especially if they're coming from your garden. But it is possible to over-season with the dried spices. And by those, before we talk about how to make the harmony, the instruments I'm talking about are white pepper, black pepper, paprika, cayenne, nutmeg, cinnamon, clove, fennel seed, coriander, mace, which is nutmeg, but just one part of it, and cumin, caraway seed, all kinds of stuff.
Are you talking about just things that we put in sausage?
Yeah, spices.
Spices in particular.
Dried stuff. Dried spices,
Okay.
not stuff from the garden.
We have put like apples and syrup and like more substantial solid things, but I don't know.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay.
And then there's also all the liquid stuff you can put in there.
Okay.
But as to these dried spices, those tend to be the ones that hang out in my shop a lot.
Yeah.
And I do prefer the ones that have a slightly more, I won't go there. So here's the ratio. Here's the harmony, the key to harmony. And it's going to be, one tricky thing is that it does necessitate a very precise scale that can weigh really tiny quantities. Crazy, crazy tiny. Especially if you're making batches that are smaller than 30 pounds.
Yeah.
But it's worth it, because this will create a sausage that will taste good to you for a very long time, and it joins in with the rest of the ingredients of your meal, rather than being like, hey, I'm a sausage! And taking over,
Yeah.
So, so the way I figure it, and again, I got this by sort of like interpreting Maynard. Weigh the salt So let's say you weigh the ground meat mass, okay? Before you've seasoned it, there's just ground flesh with the fat in there, also ground. And you weigh it, and you get 30 pounds. And you say, okay, 2% salt by weight is what, 0.6 pounds of salt, okay? So you don't need to weigh it because you know, just over half a pound of salt, 0.6 pounds. So we're going to create our harmony of spices relative to the weight of the salt.
Got it.
Not to the weight of the meat.
Yeah.
Which is common and good. For whatever reason, this is just how I worked it out, to the weight of the salt. And so 0.6 pounds of salt to season your 30 pounds of meat. Delicious. So if you want a particular spice to be a little forward, but again, not annoying at the 10th time you eat the sausage.
Yeah.
This is kind of like the max to where you can add this spice, people will taste that spice, but it will never be annoying.
Yeah.
It will never be too much. And that particular magic ratio is 1 ounce of the spice to 1 pound of salt. So in our example, it's 0.6 of an ounce.
Sure. Okay.
We have 0.6 of a pound of salt, 0.6 an ounce of white pepper, let's say. White pepper will be forward.
Right.
And you'll find with the milder spices, you might be able to go 2 ounces to a pound of salt. So you could probably do 1.2 ounces of white pepper to our 0.6 pounds of salt in our example.
Wait, why would you do
And that's because white pepper is a milder pepper.
Oh, so
right?
you're separating... I got it. Okay.
But that's getting ahead of ourselves. So we've got the forward spice should be 1 ounce to a pound. You can just remember that. 1 ounce to a pound.
Okay.
Is to 1 pound of salt, 1 ounce of the forward spice.
Okay.
And then if you want to add more, you would, and again, as with dried spices, to create the harmony, you can do 2 or 3 more without it becoming mud, right?
Yes.
Without it becoming overly spiced. And when that happens, you get kind of this... It's a mysterious flavor, but it's just too spiced. It's not right. And it's a quarter of an ounce to a pound of salt.
Okay. For the 2 or 3 more lesser
That's right.
spices.
Yeah,
okay.
for the 2 or 3 more spices that you want. So let's say you're going to add a total of 4 spices.
And those 2 or 3 more, would they be only milder spices, or could you use a...
Whatever. This is actually where the strong spices go.
Okay.
So it's a good starting place if you're going to make a hot sausage.
Oh, okay.
To say, well, I'll mix it with, let's say you have cayenne as your source of heat, at a quarter of an ounce of cayenne to a pound of salt. And mix that, fry it up, and then taste it and see what you like the spice level. And then come up on your spice level. And then go to half an ounce or to a pound of salt, or 1 ounce to a pound of salt even, and see if you like that. So when you have this in our example, we have 0.6 of an ounce of white pepper, and then
per pound of salt.
Yes,
right.
Or
I guess it would be 0.6 pounds of salt.
That's
because
right.
We're doing 30 pounds of
it's 0.6
meat.
pounds of salt, and then a quarter of an ounce of a pound of salt. So I don't know what a quarter of 0.6 is, but we could say a third, which is 0.2.
Okay.
And so in this case, I tend to do like a quarter of an ounce per pound at that rate. Maybe coriander, and then mace, which is that one you definitely don't want to overdo.
That's pretty
The pie
strong.
Spices,
Right.
clove, nutmeg, don't overdo.
Cinnamon, yeah.
Don't overdo paprika.
Yeah.
Paprika is strange because it's mild. It's not hot, especially like sweet smoked paprika.
Yes.
It's not like, wow, this is spicy. No. It's actually not spicy at all. And it might taste good the first time you fry it up, but man, it has a way of overwhelming you with repeated consumption. And you're just very done with paprika. So...
Yes. Well, and you mastered that, actually, when we did our Mangalitsa pigs this year. We had some customers saying, it's very easy to overdo paprika, and you did it.
And that's because I followed this ratio.
Yes.
I followed this. With those, because those were Hungarian recipe, I think I did the paprika at 1 ounce per pound. Mm-hmm. And that was not too much. It was the dominant flavor, but it wasn't too much. Mm-hmm.
Okay. My student brain is kicking in here. I want to make it easier for people to get this. So if you've got a pound of salt.
Yeah.
Because let's not work with a particular example.
Okay.
Let's work with, you have a pound of salt. For every pound of salt, you do 1 ounce of your dominant spice.
That's right.
We'll say, and that dominant spice can be either mild or strong.
That's right. Yeah, It's up to you.
Okay. I might even.
That's the neat thing about this is that these are the maximum tolerable. They're not maximums. This keeps it well within the range of tolerability. So even if you mess it up and you put in spices that you don't like, it's not going to ruin the sausage.
So this is to develop a harmony.
This is for harmony.
Meat harmony.
That's
okay.
right.
So if you have a pound of salt, it's 1 ounce of your dominant spice, which can be either mild or strong. Mm-hmm. Then you have 2 or 3 lesser.
At 1/4 of an ounce to a pound of salt.
At 1/4. Lesser spices, and that's 1/4 ounce each. And those lesser spices can be, this is where you would actually
do the punchy ones.
Suggest the stronger spices.
You could do some punchy, but you can also do mild. I mean, but this is where I would start with the punchy ones.
Okay, emphasize the stronger ones.
Yeah.
Okay, this is where you would put. Would you ever put a paprika as that more dominant spice, or would you only maybe?
I did for the Mangalitsa shares.
That's right, but it just wasn't too overpowering.
But it's not. Yeah, that 1 ounce to a pound keeps it in the realm of tolerability
because it's mild or strong. On that dominant one, and then
you won't surf it of it.
But you don't want to do more than 4 total spices, or you get into mud territory.
Usually, unless you're real creative. Yeah.
Okay, and that's kind of like what Maynard did with his Cumberland.
More or less. Right? I summarized all of his sausage recipes and worked with him for a while, made different variations, and I derived this from him. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can't exactly remember how.
Okay. I like that. I like math. So that makes it's like a formula.
Yeah, it is a formula. So forward spice, 1 ounce to a pound of salt. Background harmony spices, 1/4 of an ounce to a pound of salt.
Yeah.
And in our example, like a classic pork sausage, it's just real British style, good stuff, would be, you could do white, if we use our 30-pound batch, that is 0.6 pounds of salt. So you could do 0.6 ounce of white pepper.
Yeah.
And then at 1/4 of an ounce, you could do, which would be to a pound of salt, which would be 0.15 ounces.
Oh, you worked it out?
Yeah. Okay. With my calculator. In this case, you could do 0.15 ounces of mace, 0.15 ounces of coriander, and 0.15 ounces of sage.
Yeah.
And so that's just one recipe you could try out to see this harmony notion working. 30 pounds of sausage, 0.6 pounds of salt, 0.6 ounces of white pepper, 0.15 ounces of mace, 0.15 ounces of coriander, 0.15 ounces of sage. That is a delicious sausage right there.
Is that your Cumberland? Or is that something else?
That's pretty close to it.
You're just
I do more
riffing.
I'm riffing, but I do more. You can plug any in. That's the cool. It's such a flexible mechanism because it has built in the safety mechanism to prevent you from overspicing something.
Yeah. So this is like sausage.
It has that built in.
2.0. You got your basic, like get the meat to lean to fat and the salt ratio down.
Yeah.
And then if you really want to play with the texturing and the harmonization, because you got your melody down, but if you want to add some harmony, this is the way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of sausage that we make a lot because we do end up freezing a lot of sausage. And this freezes well because they're dry spices.
How many people do you know you would say truly share your back to the land values? Or your passion for home-scale craft meat curing? Or simply love the multifaceted beauty of a good meal as obsessively as you do? Maybe a handful? At farmsteadmeatsmith.com, we've created an online community of hundreds of omnivores from around the world and a platform for them to learn from and inspire one another. In addition to our major semi-annual hands-on educational event, The Family Pig, here at our Pacific Northwest homestead, over at farmsteadmeatsmith.com, we host a purely digital membership program with an archive of film and textual resources years deep now, for you to dive deeper into your food journey with. And both our classes and online program include access to our private community Facebook page for your continued education and fellowship. We've been told that our classes are life-changing and the membership program unparalleled in quality and quantity. To get a taste of our education, search farmsteadmeatsmith.com and our YouTube channel for our free films, conversations, and downloads. Explore how we and other meatsmiths across the globe may best come alongside you, putting the knife in your hand, article by article, and comment thread by comment thread, and can support you in building your home around the harvest. Please head to farmsteadmeatsmith.com today.
Which brings me to the liquid ingredients.
Okay.
Which are, again, as diverse as you can possibly imagine. Honey, maple syrup, wine, cider, beer. Cheap beer is an excellent addition to sausage, by the way. But the thing to remember about them is that it messes with the sausage you intend to freeze. Mm-hmm. So, same with raw garlic. Garlic is an excellent thing to add to sausage. I don't like powdered garlic, maybe just because it cramps my style, but raw garlic is... Well, and powdered garlic doesn't taste like garlic. No, it tastes like something else, which maybe that's okay.
Like
but
MSG or something.
I think I resent its being called garlic because it just doesn't taste like garlic to me. But raw garlic and anything with alcohol in it kind of messes up your links if you freeze them because the alcohol is not quite going to freeze. I don't know what it is with garlic. There's oil in it or something. It's not freezing well. And it will be a notable reduction in the quality of the texture of the links that you have laboriously nursed into equally shaped links of perfect density. Then it's kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
So if you're making a sausage you intend to freeze, keep out the alcohol and the fresh garlic.
Yeah.
And I would say even fresh herbs are not... They lose some of their magic in a frozen sausage, but...
Yeah.
These dry spices fare quite well in a freezer.
Yeah.
And it's basically the sausage you put in to the freezer is the sausage you will take out. You'll recognize it when you fry it up.
Okay, so liquids.
Yeah.
Beer, wine. You've done milk. Did you say that?
Yeah, you can do milk, especially
syrup.
If it's unpasteurized milk. It'll help with the fermentation if you want to do a little tanginess.
Yeah.
If you let the sausage sit anywhere after the stuffing that is not refrigeration for overnight, it will develop a sourly flavor that you will really like. It's actually the flavor that all commonly mass-produced sausages are trying to approximate when they add ascorbic acid. So they're adding the ingredient called sourliness. You can achieve that by the natural process of slow fermentation. Just by leaving it out on your counter for your cooked sausages. And even if you let it hang in your fridge for several days, the metabolic rate will be much slower, but it will still happen. And you'll get that slight tanginess that's just so good. It really helps with the harmony we're talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, liquid ingredients are awesome. Red wine, white wine, cider, dry stuff. I do like Rainier beer in an herb sausage.
Okay.
It's just crazy good. Hoppy beer, not so good.
Yeah.
Not a fan of hops anywhere. In fact,
we're not a fan of
or over hopped
in general.
Again, because we're going for harmony.
Yes.
The point of hops is their foil of sweet malt. Not that they taste like poison, which is bitter.
Yeah.
It's like, we know that they're bitter.
Yeah.
That's why they foil sweet malt. So you're thinking of ingredients as foils here.
Yeah.
Of each other, countering, harmonizing.
Yeah.
So, liquid ingredients. You want to be easy on the sugar. I don't have a magical... Well, try this. Try the 1 ounce to a pound, quarter of an ounce to
Oh.
a pound of salt ratio when it comes to maple syrup and honey.
Sure. Okay.
It is easy to eat. It's easy to overdo those.
I don't know if honey sounds good to me, but
Yeah, that might not be good. I don't know. Depends probably on the kind of honey. There's so much diverse.
That's true.
But that's kind of the neat hedge about this little ratio is that it will be small enough that it won't bother you.
Yeah.
The quantity won't destroy the sausage. But it's also, there's enough of it there that you might not taste it with the first patty that you fry up as a test before you stuff it. But after you've had the sausage the 20th time, you're going to start to note, you will definitely have noticed those other spices, even if they're at that lower range.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we've linked it. Let's talk about cooking it.
Okay.
How do we cook it?
Yeah, I think I was one thing I usually mention too with recipes, I just thought of this. Usually when you take your meat or have it slaughtered or worked on by someone else, they have 2 categories of sausage. They have breakfast sausage and they have Italian sausage.
Oh, yeah.
And then they have, mild Italian or sweet Italian or spicy
Oh,
Italian.
my gosh.
Which is fine. They can be good sausages. They're probably not made anywhere in Italy, but it doesn't matter. But that's like the spicing profile. And if you like those, that you can achieve that, use the same ratio. But as far as the actual spices used, like in a breakfast sausage, sage. Sage means breakfast. That like if you put any amount of sage in your sausage, at anything over the quarter of an ounce to a pound of salt metric, you will think this is breakfast sausage. That's just what sage does to sausage.
Yes.
That's what Jimmy Dean's has done to sausage. That is the breakfast flavor. And if you tip in a little maple syrup, then you're really getting there. Black pepper, a little bit of coriander on the lower end. That's breakfast sausage.
Yeah.
And I think a welcome addition is ginger. Ginger's kind of nice in a breakfast
right.
sausage. On a smaller quantity, it adds that sparkly sweetness that's really nice.
You could also add like apples and onions, and that kicks
Right,
it
I
into the breakfast
forgot about
category.
that.
Yeah.
If you want to finely chop potatoes to little tiny cubes, they are delicious in sausage. And these you can be very generous with. These vegetables, we could say there's a vegetable category. Finely chopped onions, finely diced apples are so good. They're so good in sausage.
Yeah.
Do it.
Well,
Even finely chopped bread.
I was just gonna say, starches like rice.
I mean, when you think about it, that's why Thanksgiving stuffing is any good.
Yeah.
It's because it's sausage that's fatty, cooking with cubes of sour bread.
I used to think it was a cheating, like, okay, you're just filling it out with starch.
Right.
But actually, it's actually used because it holds on to the fat instead of just letting it run out.
Right.
And then you lose it. It holds on to the fat, which is the flavor.
Yeah.
And so you actually get more flavor with
That's right.
the rice and the bread.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So bread is an excellent addition. And literally, I mean, we're spoiled because we have the bread that you make, which is this organic white wheat and whole wheat loaf that is a no-knead bread that is not overly sour, but it does have a little bit of sourness to it. It's not yeast farts. It's actual.
It's sourdough.
It's a fermented loaf. And, we routinely have like a exterior slice that is, because it just lives on our counter. The loaf is huge. It's bigger than my head.
It's massive.
And so there's always a little bit left over, and just cube it up. Maybe even run it through the grinder. That's fine. And add that to the sausage. It is a really welcome addition. And that does make me think of binders, which are a whole other category of ingredient. And blood is a binder because it has the albumin protein, which is what eggs have. So eggs are a binder.
Yeah.
Meaning when you cook them, they don't melt, they solidify. In the addition, you can add those to
Yes.
sausage. The other thing is rice.
Right.
Rice was the original binder in England before rusk, which is like breadcrumbs, but without yeast. So they did rice, and rice is great. It's starchy. You cook it before you add it to the mix, let it chill, and then you mix it into the sausage. You want to account for the addition of the rice when you calculate your salt by the weight of the total mass, right? So it's 2% salt by weight of meat, fat, and rice.
Oh, got it.
So that's also salted, so you don't have a bland sausage.
Yes, right.
But rice is great because it's absorbent and starchy, so it holds on to fats and juices. And then rusk is, we don't really have it here, but it is a yeastless cracker type crumbly bready thing. And it's quite good in sausage. And I can't remember the ratio that you want to add it in, but I wouldn't go over like 10% by weight. That would be a lot because rusk is light, so little goes a long way.
Scott Ree also has a couple of videos, I think, on this topic.
That's right. He even shows you how to make it at home because you can't really get it here.
Yeah.
It's kind of tedious to make, especially in quantities, but it is pretty darn cool. Another binder is skin, and this might be the greatest binder of all. Is the skin of a pig. And before you use it, you do need to cook it because it is so tough. At least our little 3/4 horsepower grinder, it just stops it dead in its tracks. And so cook it first. You cut it into strips that will fit in the hopper of your grinder, then simmer those for like a half an hour, 20 minutes, until you can rip them apart by hand.
Yeah.
Then run those through the grinder.
It's a great use for your skin anyway.
It is.
There's so much skin on a pig.
There is, and it adds quite a lot to the sausage.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
Again, I wouldn't do it over 10% of the weight because then we're talking a majorly rich sausage. You could eat like a quarter of a Lincoln, you'll take a nap.
That's true.
It's super rich.
Yeah.
I would say one key to using skin is let it chill before you grind it and mix it. Okay. So let it chill, get cold, then grind it, and then mix it by hand because if you grind it hot, you tend to dislodge a lot of the collagen and then it will solidify because there's so much collagen in it. That becomes gelatin. And it'll just be this big, huge chunk of a mass of skin that's not integrating in with your sausage. Yeah. So if you want it to be more integratable, let them chill, then grind and mix that with the raw, cool ground meat. And again, include that into your salting ratio. Cotechino is a really cool sausage we've made before with chunks of hand chopped skin. Oh geez. And
this is where you need like a whole family to do this kind of processing.
Yeah. But it's a boiling sausage. And that skin contributes a just incredible, rich, unctuous porcine flavor to a pot of beans. It's a sausage you cook in a pot of beans.
Yes.
Yeah, so those binders, liquid ingredients. I've never used anything weird. I've never used condensed milk or...
Okay, so...
Which is a thing.
One time, because you generally, when we have classes, you generally give people some of these basic, outlines. And then you're like, so have at it. And someone took you seriously and they're like, what if we put a banana in it? And they're like, okay, well, it actually wasn't horrible. It was just a little odd. But so maybe there are a few. I mean, that was really outside. I think he was trying to prove you wrong, actually.
I don't know. Yeah. That was outside the hemisphere, outside the box. Yeah.
I like to put monkey wrenches in it.
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah. I can't say I was a fan of that sausage.
Yeah. It's a little interesting. He took you very literally. Yeah.
I think he liked it, though, and
good.
That's what matters.
Yeah. So. It was his sausage, because when you come to a class, we have you take home 3 pounds of the sausage you make.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It was sort of fun. I think that was at our old house. That was a while ago.
Yeah.
Let me take a brief moment here while I'm mentioning classes, because we actually just posted our classes for next spring. So please take a look and consider whether or not coming to a class would be right for you next year. I know we've been there's a lot of people that keep saying, oh, I can't wait to come, it's on the horizon, I want to come, it's on my bucket list, and maybe this is the year. So these also make great holiday gifts. So we have lots of people that give these to their spouses, their children, or their parents. And we've got a link in the show notes that we'll add that will have all the details. It's the middle of December right now when this podcast will probably be published. And please do consider using these as gifts for your loved ones. The classes, I think, they're in the spring, April, May, perhaps, maybe March, April. I can't remember off the top of my head. But we'll get the dates for you. And it'd be so fun. So the whole third day of our class is making sausage. Mm-hmm. And so you get to really put these principles into practice and feel what the myosin conversion feels like and feel what it's like to use a stuffer and practice using someone else's meat, and work out some of the kinks. And then you get to go home and I mean, just you're off to the races at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole third day is sausage. It's amazing.
Especially the eating of sausage.
Yes.
Which is really the final cause.
Okay. So we're at the final cause here. Mm-hmm. All right. Take us through it.
And I think that is, we always say that the thing about butchery is that the thing is not about butchery. It's about cookery. And cooking really is the telos of all of this.
Yeah. And
it depends on, what proximity we're going to define the final cause at. Is it the cooking, or is it what it contributes to your home? Because if we go that broad, it's like sausage is an assertion of delight in human life.
Yeah.
It is so delicious. It's so tailor-made for our eating. Mm-hmm. It's an assertion of the validity of our tastes, our silly, our desire to eat things that are pre-seasoned and pre-chewed and just taste good.
Yeah.
And that's what sausage is.
It's a climactic kind of a dish because there's a lot of processing that goes in there.
Yeah.
As opposed to a pork chop or even a pig tail. I mean, those things have their moments of glory, but the sausage, I mean, we decorate Christmas trees with sausage.
That's right. We make a Christmas sausage.
We wrap them in gold foil. It's delicate. It's glorious all at once.
We'll make a garland of sausages with foil. We'll have the pigs. We should do that.
Yeah.
This year.
Yeah.
It's perfect timing, actually. Kind of.
We tend to put our own pigs as a afterthought.
Yeah.
So it just comes on us every once in a while. Oh yeah, we have our pigs coming. What are we going to do with them? But yeah, so cooking them, and I would say even eating them is the final cause.
Yeah, it is.
Because, I mean, sometimes we talk about it so long, and then we'll have friends over even, and they're just in awe of, the amount of work, really, that it took to make something. And then they'll say something like, well, how do I eat it?
Oh,
and, after it's been cooked, and it's like, oh, just...
They never have to ask that with sausage, though.
No, that's true. Yeah,
Everybody knows how to eat a sausage.
That's true, yeah.
But, yeah, I would say that when it comes to cooking, I mean, we really... What do? We feature sausage every time we cook it.
Well...
It's frying.
We used to do a little liturgy about it. We would simmer it first for a few minutes, and that would sort of toughen up the exterior and prevent it from bursting, but... We tend to not do that anymore if we just fry it low and flip it once.
Yeah, so I guess that's really the only trick when it comes to grilling or frying sausage is the direct and abrupt contact of the heat source on the cold casing. And that can the casing will shrink, blister, and pop, which it's actually not that bad if that happens, but... Because, especially if you source a good pig and you've mixed it nice, you got the stringies and the clingies, a lot of the liquid and the fat still won't run out because it's integrated with the protein of the meat. It's kind of locked in, which is nice. And so, but nonetheless, you can mitigate the loss of any flavorings or nice things you put in there by preventing the casing from bursting. And a little 4-minute simmer in water basically just warms the casing. So it's not cold casing, hot skillet, which causes it to shrink real quick and maybe burst real quick. And then for going the water, you would just fry it gently and flip it once. Because if you when you flip it once, you've got the blistered brown side up, and on a skillet, that side's getting cold. It's losing temperature, and it's made brittle because of the frying.
Weakened, yeah.
And so if you flip it back on the heat directly, it's going to burst. I almost promise you.
It's kind of the same principle, a little different, but if you have a steak, people who know how to cook steaks, they know.
Flip it once.
You just flip it once.
And then don't touch it.
Yeah.
Yes, very true. And you can kind of forego a lot of that by baking too. We've gone through spats of baking our sausages on a tray, and we figure it out anew every time how long and what temperature. But it is nice to get that. It's nice to crisp up the casing, because then it's not stringy and chewy. It's just, it pops, and it's very taut. Sometimes if I'm ever going to simmer a sausage, I make the sausage with simmering in mind.
Oh, okay.
So with all the sausages we've made that we make commonly, I intend to fry them. If they are going to be simmered, then I salt them more heavily. It's more like, I go up to a teaspoon and a half per pound of meat. I don't know what that is percentage of weight, but it's like 2.2% or something. Just because the act of simmering a sausage that long, even if it's in beef, or even if it's in beer, I mean,
right,
like a bratwurst or something, it will sap some of the salt out through osmosis or diffusion, and some of the fat, and you'll lose some of it.
Yeah.
Some of that flavor.
Yeah.
So I'm usually fry them, unless I intend the sausage for that end, for simmering.
I want to bring this to a close, but you just mentioned bratwurst, and that brought to mind that we just cooked sausage in sauerkraut the other week.
That was awesome.
It was so awesome. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Wait, how did we do that? That was very similar to this recipe, the white pepper, coriander.
Yeah.
That was crazy good.
But just the act of simmering it in sauerkraut, it was so good. The kids loved it. Everyone loved it.
We ate more of
Just
it.
do
Okay,
it.
yeah. No, this is a whole... This is actually the science of cooking sausage.
Yeah.
See, the thing about this sausage that we're telling you, we're divulging the recipes for, or teaching you how to make, is that it is extremely rich. We take it for granted because that is the only sausage we eat.
Yes.
But relative to the grocery store, in terms of richness and how filling this sausage is with this quantity of fat, this quantity of salt, it's like 1 to 5. I can eat 5 links of store-bought stuff relative to what we make. So what you want to do is naturally facilitate the consumption of the most sausage humanly possible. And what that requires is, again, harmony.
Yes.
So the rich, salty fatness of the sausage needs to be countered, foiled by the sour tanginess of fermented vegetables.
Yes. Kimchi as well.
Yeah. I mean, sauerkraut, it's really hard to beat the sauerkraut that you made.
It's kind of obvious.
That was just so stupid good. And I think what I did is I still browned the sausages in a skillet. Just browned, so they're totally raw, but the outside is crispy.
Kind of caramelized, yeah.
And then I plopped them in with the sauerkraut, and I think I did add some stock and some apple cider.
Yeah.
Because the sauerkraut was quite dry, and so it did need some liquid that could cook down.
You probably deglazed the pan that the sausages were in, and then added the kraut to the sausage pan, and then started.
That sounds like me.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about the sauerkraut is it loses not its sourliness upon being cooked. It retains it.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And the magic of it was we ate like twice the quantity of sausage we usually would, only because it was accompanied by its foil. It was accompanied by sauerkraut.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. That was so good. That's why, when I'm in the shop here by myself and I don't, for whatever reason you're gone, or lunch is just not happening that day, I'll fry up a sausage and just eat it with mustard. All I will have is the sausage with mustard. And that little zing, that sourly tang, really is awesome. It creates almost a total complete harmony.
Yeah.
I would say the one thing that's missing is not necessarily another flavor, but a texture. I think the rich, unctuous, fatty flavor married and countered by the sour flavor it really quivers in harmony in the music of the spheres when you get a crunch in there. Like fried bread, something that's got a crunch to it.
Yes, yeah.
It's really awesome.
Well, and not to mention your beverage that will be going with it, which is why beer just goes so well with it.
Yeah.
Because it's got that countering.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, a nutty, sweeter beer. Yeah, the carbonation.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so the harmony is very deep. And I think that's really the final cause of sausage, is finding its place in the grand harmony of the meal as a whole.
Sure.
You will love it even more. And feeding our chudders, as our daughters would say.
Yeah.
Our chudder.
It was a game changer for me when you brought home our first sausage that you had made. This was back when you were not working for us. You were working for Seabreeze. And you brought home a sausage. And I was newly pregnant. And I had the morning sickness. I was like, really?
Yeah.
This is what we're doing now? It was too much for me.
Yeah.
Just because it was different.
Yeah.
It was richer. And I was used to less rich foods.
I was probably a little amateurish in my zeal for salt and fat at that time, too.
Okay, that makes me feel better, because I was...
It's like 9 years ago.
Oh, man, I was... Yeah, you had to mellow out a little bit. Yeah.
Had to find the harmony.
And I just couldn't do it. And I was shocked at myself, too, because I like to eat. But the morning sickness... It was my first child, so it was too much.
Chopped apples.
Yes.
I also added that to the sauerkraut.
Oh, that's what you did. Yes, that sweetened it. It mellowed out the kraut a little bit.
Well, and the cool thing with apples is when you cook them, they get more sour.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, but that's what happens. And it is very good.
Real quick, let's end on a little etymology. Well, sort of etymology. It's not, maybe just nomenclature. But we started with the etymology of sausage. And one of the things that we laugh about, just kind of oddities of the trade, we'll say that every industry has, is we love when customers say, oh, just make me a kielbasa.
Oh, right.
Right? And so there's a language barrier, because we're like, really? Are you like Polish? Like, did your grandmother make kielbasa? Great, now we have to match what she did. Or is it just because, like, you're American and, like, there's an American kielbasa now that you can get from your local slaughterman, and it just means something that's linked.
That's right.
That's it. So what do you mean by kielbasa? I mean, here we like, okay, just make me a merguez. Just make me a, you know, and it's like this, there needs to be a, if we had time, you know, it'd be neat to become the linguistic authority on what these terms mean, especially in America, because we are this culture that's brought in all these other cultures, and what does everything mean now? Yeah. That's something that's we've kind of stumbled around in, and if you're another processor, you probably know what I mean. But I don't know. It's something to kind of research a little. Yeah, that was funny too, especially because gosh, our index is so useless. What book is that? So this is what I was going to mention with a lot of these things. The funny terminology, because it was so interesting that particular customer this was years ago, but it's been reiterated over and over again. They said, just make a kielbasa. And I'm like, oh, okay, smoked, has bacon in it, Polish, which region? Like, what is she talking about? And just linked, not bulk. That's what kielbasa meant to her, which
in sort of an ironic way, is kind of what kielbasa means.
Okay.
It's sausage.
Yeah.
Just means sausage.
Okay. In Polish.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a Kraków sausage.
Oh.
It's a sausage from Kraków. And if you want particularly for Central European, Eastern European sausage styles, if you want there is actually an authoritative list of them with attendant definitions, and they are historically authentic. And it is the result of the Soviet Union. The party members, wanted to flatten all cultures and destroy Polish identity, except for their sausage. Because it tasted real good. And so they actually got government backing behind retaining all of the official sausage recipes.
Yeah.
And I was going to look it up online, but I can't quite remember. These guys have a website. I think it's called Withywindle. Good luck spelling that one.
Okay.
Withywindle.com. But at the very least, the guys that curate that list, and it is extensive online, are Stanley Mariansky and Adam Mariansky. And they have produced this wonderful tome in 2010. And it's called The Home Production of Quality Meats and Sausages, right here. And what I think is cool about this is if you want a Polish meat cookbook, this is it right here. It doesn't say that in the title, but that's what this is.
Yeah.
And it is all these Eastern, Central European, some Northern European, German, authentic recipes for old school stuff. Now, it's all nitrate and nitrite, but they divulge enough information for you to excavate how things were done before we had the luxury of using synthetic nitrite, which is recent. Before, I think, the 1920s, we were all limited to the use of saltpeter for any nitrate at all. And even then, it was only nitrate, which had to be nursed through the skill of the curer into nitrite to even have any notable effect at all. So, anyway, it's an amazing tome, and they define a lot of those types. Unfortunately, it is produced by Book Magic LLC, which I think means it's just produced by them. And
That's what it sounds like.
Let's just say they didn't have much of an editor, but I still love it. I mean, I go to this all the time. There's the sheer quantity of information is incredible. The index is consummately useless, and so is the table of contents.
I've had a number of self-published books that I want to.
It's okay. You just find yourself going through, a lot of this stuff, and it's really fun. Trying to find examples of. They have Russian sausage, Polish sausage, Hungarian sausage. They have Polish government recipes for making traditional salami. Okay?
Wow.
Yeah.
So the Polish government, they just what's it called when you pay for something to happen?
Yeah, they've sponsored, they've funded.
Yeah.
I mean,
a national sausage registry almost.
I think those are nice ways to say what the Soviet Union did to the Polish sausage, but yeah, they wanted it to be like Landjäger. It's a sausage similar to Austrian Kontwurst, as both sausages are flattened during fermentation, which gives them a rectangular shape. Did you know that Landjäger was traditionally flattened? It's super interesting. Yeah, lots of really interesting stuff. He's got a whole section on kielbasa. Naturally, you have to flip through all. Oh
my gosh, you can't just
700 pages to find it because it's not in the index. But
okay, well, keep looking.
Yeah,
we're wrapping this up. We're over 2 hours now. This is the longest podcast we've ever done. And I knew it was going to be hard. In fact, I feel like we've just been so scatterbrained because it's this topic that it forces you into all these rabbit trails that you need to go down in order to feel like you've really wrapped your mind around it.
To say a very simple thing. I hope it's simple.
Sausage, man. It's ground meat with salt. But just like sausage itself is this fragmented not fragmented in a negative way, but it's broken down. I hope we've broken it down for you a little bit. And I wanted to say we've got more education on this, as well as more like sausage. If you wanted to wrap your mouth around some sausage that we make, we have pork shares. We're selling pork shares again. In the new year, we've got a round of up to 8 shares available from our Burton Hill Farm partner. We're going to be harvesting those at the end of January and into the spring, perhaps, depending on how high the demand is. And we've also got a lock on some more mangalitas for the spring.
Oh, cool.
So I haven't, by the time this is published, hopefully I'll have the page up and ready on our website. But even if I don't, email us and we will lock you in for a share. We'll have as many of the Mangalita shares as possible, and we definitely have some, or as many as you require of us. He's got like 50 to 30 pigs, so we've got a lot of pigs available to us right now. The Gloucester Old Spot traditional share, as well as the Mangalita share, and the information for all those and what's included, which is 100% yield. Mm-hmm. And everything that we've talked about, you can find on our webpage. So, but what I'm trying to say is sausage is included in both of those shares, quite a bit, like 15 to 25 pounds per share of linked sausage, and which you've crafted it with this delicate harmony that we've been talking about. The other thing is, if you're interested in more education on sausage itself, we have our membership opportunities, which is open. Registration is open right now, and there's lots of video, as well as forum, education archived there. And then classes itself. We've got 16 tickets ready to go in the spring for some hands-on opportunities on slaughtering, butchering, and sausaging some pigs. So I just wanted to put a little plug in there for all these different ways that we can offer our pork harvesting knowledge to you. How did I do? Did I buy you enough time there to find the kielbasa reference?
Yeah, sort of.
Okay.
You kind of have to like getting lost in books.
I know.
When you get this one, because lost is what you will get. And I did draw a lot from this when I designed those Mangalita pig shares, because there's lots of Hungarian stuff in here. Like hurka, which is a Hungarian sausage. Sometimes added with blood. It's so cool. A lot of the names contain clues into how they are made. And it's really, really fun. Oh, we didn't even talk about andouille sausage.
No, I know. Our smoked sausage.
Oh,
you just did. We could do a whole nother episode. Maybe we will. But smoked sausage, you just did a batch with our pigs.
Yeah.
And you added the nitrate, a little touch of nitrate, like a way reduced version. And it was
the first time I've ever used Cure Number 1 in my life.
That's right. And then what was the first thing I told you?
I don't know.
After you did it, I was like, can you stop using that? And you were like, what do you mean? I just did it once.
Yeah.
Like, oh, sorry. It had this like feeling of, I'm tired of this already. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it was actually very instructive because I talk a lot about nitrite, but I've never used it, which is, that could be considered brazen. But it was interesting. It solidified in my mind. Actually, what I've always said about it is that it indubitably affects the flavor decisively, hugely.
Yeah.
And the thing that it adds is not sourness. That only comes from acid, which can come from bacteria or like a direct additive of ascorbic acid or something. It adds tang.
Yeah.
And the tang is distinct from sour, big time. It's a tangy thing. It's if it were to go too far, if it were to be amplified beyond tolerability, it would be metallic. It's a metallic tang. If you smell the Cure Number 1 bottle, you're like, whoa, tinny chlorine type of tang. And in small amounts, I think it's okay, but it is best accompanied by sourness. And anyway, more harmony stuff. We'll probably talk about that later.
Okay.
it is really interesting, and I still want to form more opinions of it.
You know what we'll do? We'll do, maybe our next episode will be on smoking, because we haven't done one on smoking, and we talk about lots of things that we smoke.
Yeah.
And we'll include smoked sausage. We'll do a whole treatment of what happened there.
Sure.
So that's our little plug.
Which was all good. We love it. Stupid delicious.
Oh, it was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. I think that's it.
Cool.
For today. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet on iTunes or YouTube even. And if you do, there's actually a way you can be notified when we have a new episode up. I think there's like a bell or something next to the subscription button on our YouTube page. And that just helps you know when we have a new episode up. So, and I can say we have a lady that's helping us get these out every week now, starting with this episode. So, which is a huge step. It's been a lot of ups and downs and curves trying to get that to happen.
Yeah.
But it's happening now. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. We really appreciate you, our followers. And Christmas is just around the corner. So hopefully we'll record another one before Christmas. But if not, do have a very Merry Christmas. And we'll see ya soon.
You can receive updates on all our brand new content as it's released by signing up for our email newsletter. Free download of Brandon's thoughts on meat cookery included. Go to farmsteadmeatsmith.com and sign up on the homepage. Thanks again for listening, and keep in touch.